before we talk about Port Adelaide, I've just got some news on Melbourne. My information is that Clayton Oliver is a red-hot chance to play this weekend.
Okay.
Big inclusion if he does. If he doesn't, they'll give him another week, but he's well and truly in the frame, Jared.
Last time you came into this show at this time of the night, Tom, you broke the biggest story of the year with Damien Hardwick going out. So not quite as big a story, but not bad. I think a lot of Melbourne folks would be pretty pleased to hear Clayton Oliver is coming back.
They don't play him this week against North, do they?
He's a chance.
Why would you play him? He's one more.
A good point.
One more
Good point.
against North.
He's in the frame, Kane. Doesn't mean he's going to play, but he's in the frame.
Melbourne fans, 0433 90 at 1116. Would you risk your best player, maybe, best midfielder, against North, who have just lost to the worst team since Fitzroy and the Giants when they were 18-year-olds on the weekend and are on a 17-game losing streak? I wouldn't, but you can have your say on that. What's happening at Port?
Okay, so Port's been issued a please explain from the AFL relating to the club's decision to not undertake a SCAT 5 concussion test for Alia on Saturday night. Now, Kane, a SCAT 5 concussion test, that is the AFL's fancy way of saying a proper concussion test, isn't it? It's what they do for every player that gets a heavy hit. But Port didn't do it for Alia, and the league believes the force of the head knock should have led to that test and Alia being in that 15-minute HIA protocol. Now, Alia and Lockie Jones have now been placed in concussion protocols and won't play this weekend against Geelong. Now, in terms of a punishment, because of this please explain, it's potentially a fine, potentially a suspended fine as well if any wrongdoing is proven, but it's certainly not an ideal situation from a Port Adelaide perspective at this point.
Why didn't the person in the booth, whatever you call it, back at what do you call it? The arc. Yeah, why didn't the person in the arc up?
I'm not sure the answer to that. The protocol when they come to the bench is the doctor checks it and evaluates all the symptoms, the vision, and then they make a decision. And I'm inclined to always back the doctor unless there's a clear reason not to. So there's been a please explain that's been delivered, but that doesn't mean that there's any guilt at this stage. We have to get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
Well, my thought on it, and I know the doctor really well, and he's been an incredible family doctor to myself, Mark Fixture, and you trust him with your life. There's so much going on for the doctors on the bench. So he's got, think about it, a big collision. He's got to firstly assess two players as the head doctor. Then he's got to come to the bench, escort them off. Then he's got to check them. Then there was a cut under the chin which needed to be stitched up. Yep. Then you've got the game going on around you, so there may be other incidents that he needs to look after. So does this decision need to be taken out of the hands of the doctor? And people may say that is an excuse, but surely eyes above and away and removed from the emotion and the chaos that is going on the interchange bench would be better in future to be assessing whether players need to have an assessment or not. Very
rare that you've got two, but there is the independent person in the arc. So this is why I'm confused
with communication to Port Adelaide's bench though.
To the doctor. So I'm not sure why
they do use the person in the arc, but they're not obliged to do it.
No, they're not obliged.
An option. It's an option to be used at times. But the helter-skelter nature of the game, there's two players that come off with a head knock, probably means that the doctor just backs his or her own judgment, and this is the case here. Wait and see how that plays out. I want to have a listen to Dane Zorko on SEN Queensland this morning talking about this alleged incident with Tuke Miller. I'm told that the medical report was clear. So whatever evidence there wasn't translated in the medical report, meaning the MRO had no impact to grade this alleged offence. So the evidence that might have come forward could have been after the medical report had been submitted, but certainly Michael Christian, my understanding is, had no line of sight on any evidence.
Why didn't they just speak to Dane?
Well, that's one thing that they can do, and it's been done in the past. I think Bontempelli and Nick Haynes were involved in an incident a few years ago where someone from the AFL can conduct their own investigation and speak to both parties. That didn't happen here.
Is Tuke Miller essentially, is
Dane Zorko?
Dane Zorko essentially saying that Tuke Miller deliberately did it?
Yes, he's saying he intentionally did it, in which case that would be a serious misconduct and trip to the tribunal. But the MRO hasn't seen any evidence, so they can't. So
you're saying now the AFL aren't happy with him going public with it?
The AFL is not happy with Dane Zorko.
Yeah. Please explain.
I'm not going to go that far yet, but the AFL isn't happy with Dane Zorko's comments. and the Brisbane Lions are aware of that view from the AFL.
Why would it's different, and it's against the so-called players' code that we've had for 100 years.
I don't think those two actually have a players' code between them.
I don't think they've
got a different code.
Why would the AFL be upset with Dane Zorko speaking like that? What did he say that the AFL could be unhappy with?
That the
that's
MRO,
the way he saw it.
A current player saying that the MRO got it wrong, I think is worthy of a discussion at AFL House.
We'll tell that to the person who had their groin grabbed.
Well, I know, but no matter what you feel yourself, I think the AFL would expect players not to publicly criticise the MRO, just like they wouldn't publicly criticise the umpires.
I think there's some incidents that are worthy of criticism.
That's one of them.
Others that perhaps aren't. What else is making news?
So the AFL has a new boss of finances, clubs, fixtures and broadcast. It was Travis Auld, and he's leaving on Friday. Matt Chun is the new interim boss of those areas. Very important role, given that they're looking after broadcast and clubs and finances and fixtures. And he'll take over from Travis Auld and his portfolio later in the week. He's also looking after the Marvel Stadium redevelopment. So he's got a significant role on an interim basis. They're clearly just waiting for Brendan Gale to take over and be this senior football person.
What's the latest on Brendan Gale? Well, there's other people out there say that he's not interested in a watered-down role.
Absolutely correct. He's only interested in a senior role that is more expansive than any other person in the AFL aside from Andrew Dillon.
Right.
So if they can offer him...
Do you still think he'll take the job?
I'm not sure if he's going to take the job or not, but he's certainly more interested in that job than he would be in a traditional Steve Hocking or Brad Scott footy boss role. And then they'll have someone below
Brad
him.
Scott was a lot watered down from Steve Hocking. He had a fairly full portfolio. So you'd have to be in charge of football. You'd have to be in charge of probably Tasmania.
Yeah. Fixtures, broadcasting.
A couple of other things.
So Travis Auld leaving allows the portfolio to be expanded, in which case Brendan Gale or someone else can take that role.
You were very clear or very quick to clarify a couple of things or add a couple of things to Sammy's breaking story this morning.
Yes.
You obviously had your nose pretty close to the ground, even though it's been spread over your face the last couple of weeks, your nose. So it's the reconstruction is looking terrific, by the way.
Thank you. I needed it.
What else do you know about this whole thing?
Well, first of all, Sam Edmund broke the story that Buddy Franklin has retired, and that's effective immediately. So if you missed that, that is the big news from today.
Was there any truth in the rumours around the Suns?
Not that I'm aware of. Right. No, not that I'm aware of. The truth is that Buddy Franklin was open to playing on, but the Sydney Swans were not open to him playing on next year. Their position was he should probably retire. They hadn't come to a firm decision with Buddy Franklin on that yet, but behind the scenes, their belief was that Buddy Franklin was reaching the end now, and that the articles and the talk around the last couple of weeks probably went against their views.
Jared, they've always had a marquee forward. Sydney, not always, but they've been strong in their recruitment of one and targeting of one. Would you load up for one if you were them, considering their history, or would you put the faith in Logan McDonald and Amadi, who has looked good for the last 5 weeks, and perhaps spend their money in other areas, say with a Barras behind the ball?
Well, I think their number one priority is an intercept defender. Number two priority is a ruckman. I don't think you can continue on with the two sort of part-time ruckmen that they're doing. Their clearance numbers and stoppage numbers are down as they are. So they need to find someone there. I think that they can structure a forward line that could be finals bound. In fact, I think that the more I look at footy, and I look at Melbourne and I look at Carlton, I think that mobile forward lines are going to be the future. The big lumbersome target. You can't have blokes who don't put pressure on.
Yeah, that's why I was shocked that the Dogs went for Rory Lobb again in the forward line when they've already got a pretty mobile and dynamic forward line. So Aaron Norton is a target. He's out of contract, so maybe there's going to be some news around that. Maybe there won't be. He might sign up with the Dogs, but. There's not too many Buddy Franklins out there. There's not too many Barry Halls or Tony Locketts. I don't see anybody that's available right now that can fill that breach. So I'd put my money filling a couple of other holes rather than forcing it to maybe a B-grade chance.
So Aaron Norton's contracted to the end of next year. Oscar Allen's contracted to the end of next year.
If you get Oscar Allen, then you'd be charging. But I suspect Oscar Allen will be the next captain of the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, no news officially yet on Luke Shuey or Shannon Hearn or Nick Nat-Nui who's contracted or Andrew Gaff who's contracted, but you'd imagine there'd be a fair turnover. Just some other news on injuries. Josh Bruce confirmed ACL, so he's out of contract, 31 years old. It's the opposite knee to the one that he hurt a couple of years ago, but you'd suggest that his career is in a pretty precarious position right now.
All right, a lot of comments coming through, a few texts having a go at me for my questions over the process of concussion. Kane, you muppet. Lots going up the power. The doc just had to watch the on-screen like 100,000 others saw, and both were obviously concussed, says Matt. Yeah, the 100,000 others, though, weren't assessing a multiple big collision involving multiple players. Absolutely an excuse, Kane. Clearly both, especially Aaliyah, needed a test. Just looking at the way he falls, no attempt to protect himself. Clearly an issue, says Stu. Well, they've admitted that. I mean, Port Adelaide have admitted they made a mistake.
Yes.
Essentially, haven't they? And that they should have done the test. So I'm not sure what else you would want from them other than, yep, we got it wrong. He's now in concussion protocols. He will miss this week and we got it wrong.
Yep.
Is that what people want?
Yep.
So that's what they've got. Kane, you're kidding yourself that there is no excuse for this incident. Doctor's oath is do no harm. Clearly this wasn't the case in regards to Port, says Paddy in Geelong. Kane, stop making excuses. Don't embarrass yourself. Just admit it was a cluster, says Alan. The AFL have an emergency physician at every game sitting in the crowd. Maybe their role can be expanded to assist with concussions. That's what Simon says.
They do.
Absolutely disgraceful. This is in relation to the Miller and Zorko incident. 4 to 6 week suspension every day of the week. So there's a lot of text coming through in relation to the history between Zorko and Miller. Let's go to Ringwood and speak to Eric. Hi, Eric.
Yes, Kane, similar to these texts, I would take you to task, mate. If this was the Adelaide Crows, you would be tearing them a new one, my friend.
Would I?
I think there's a lot of bias from you regarding Port Adelaide with this one. If Leah was not...
Eric, there is. There is, because this guy has been my doctor for 20 years. My son's got chronic and serious health issues. I've been on his doorstep at 12 in the morning with my son's heart rate going at 220, and he's assessed him, he's woken up, he's got out of bed. He will take a call from me at any time of the day or night. So absolutely, I am biased towards Doc Fisher. I'd trust the guy with my life. So yep, if that is bias, and I'm happy to put both hands up and say that is the case.
Yeah, but when Aaliyah is knocked out faster than Mike Tyson punch, the reality is that situation was bordering on cheating in that game of football.
Cheating.
He should have gone through the protocols 100%.
How's it cheating? It's a player welfare issue. It's not giving you an unfair advantage.
Yes, it is, because he shouldn't have gone back on the ground.
Yeah, but it's not giving you it's not cheating. It's not giving you an unfair advantage. They're not having an extra player. They're just having the player that was already there go out there. And if you're saying he was concussed, I'm not sure how that is giving you an unfair advantage, which would be the definition of cheating.
So where does it go to from here, Tom?
Well, the please explain will lead to the Port Adelaide Football Club giving a reason or giving an explanation of what happened, and I think the AFL will come back and it will either be a fine, a suspended fine, half of the other, or nothing.
Will they look at the process though?
Well, that'll be part of it. They'll look at the process, and the doctor and everyone involved will be part of that process. But I'd be surprised if Port Adelaide received a heavy-handed penalty, given that they've essentially fallen on their sword, which I think has been important. To essentially say, sorry, we got it wrong is pretty important.
Okay, we'll move up from that, Kane, whilst you're here. I know you've got to go early tonight, but Port Adelaide itself, they've lost their last three. They've got Geelong coming up. You forewarned us of this. The issue is, do you see them getting back on track?
I think they will, Gerard. I think they will regroup in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the home and away season. This week will be a challenge, albeit what do you make of Geelong? Without Blixarves and Hawkins, you would think, and the way that they're going, but with no Aaliyah there and playing in Geelong, I mean, the prospect of losing 4 in a row is not great for any prospective premier. I've just said it, they're just banged up, and there isn't the depth in their squad that the other contenders have.
No Aaliyah, but no Tom Hawkins. So
no Hawkins, no Blixarves.
It's almost an exchange of bishops.
Can I ask, does it change the goalposts? Because in 6 hours' time, Ken Hinkley would be re-signed if you believe David Koch earlier in the year. It's August, in 6 hours' time.
Discussions would start through August.
Yes, okay.
They wouldn't have to make a commitment. So my understanding is there's a verbal commitment that Ken Hinkley will be the coach next year. I think there would still be some time frame away from agreeing to terms, But once you look the coach in the eye and say, you're our guy, we want you to coach the footy club ongoing, no club goes back on their word regardless of the results. So he'll be the coach next year. It would be up to those parties to work out the terms of the deal, how long, how much. And I suspect that'll take 3 to 4 weeks. That's what I think. But he'll be the coach next year.
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to change, given that they've been in such a great position. But it does. I think this weekend does just confirm just how long this season is and how many hurdles you've got to follow or you've got to jump. How many obstacles get in your way. Tiredness comes into it. Was Collingwood tired because of the Port Adelaide game? Collingwood have, they've been on the cusp a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, and this is why the management of players is so important.
Luke Hodge joins us on a Monday. Here is the Hawthorn champion.
Massive news today, Gerard. Lance Franklin's retirement from football didn't come as a surprise, but it is a shame the way it's finished.
Oh, it's always a shame, and unfortunately he's gone out with injury. And welcome to our new audience right across the regions and over in South Australia. Happy to take your calls. You know the number or the text, and Luke Hodge is with us as always. It's always sad when you don't get the fairy tale, but not many like Shane Crawford get up and wave the premiership cup around and pull the pin the next morning, Hodgie.
No, you're right. I think Joel Soward was a very lucky man last year as well to run out that way. But I think you go through and the career he's had, he will be sitting home tonight with probably a glass of red with Jacinta and probably some family just going through some of the stories that he's had over the years. 19 years, over 1,000 goals, 2 premierships, a lot of All-Australians. It's been a fair achievement from a skinny 17-year-old who was drafted over from WA.
2 clubs, 2 cities. He was a legend in both. How disappointed were you when you found out he was leaving your fold?
To be honest, I was okay with it.
Yep.
We just won the 2013 premiership, I was on cloud 9. And we understood. We spoke to him all through the 2013 season.
Yep.
We knew there was because we thought it was GWS.
Yep.
So
did the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Everyone but about 15 people, I think.
Yeah.
Probably less than that. But we spoke to Bud throughout the year because he was trying to prove to everyone that he was the best. He was trying to be the best teammate or trying to prove to everyone that he wanted to win and make up for the grand final loss to Sydney the year before. But in doing so, he was trying to kick a bag for the goals every week, and we could see that he was trying too hard to show everyone that he wanted to win. And we said, mate, we know you've got a really big decision to make at the end of the year. If you do the right things by us, we'll do the right thing by you. And if we have success at the end of the year, whatever decision you make, we want you to stay, but if you go because of the opportunity, we totally understand that. And that was how it played out. He was a very selfless player in the prelim against Geelong. Did a selfless role, took Lonergan up the ground, and then in the grand final against Fremantle, he did the same with McFarlane. So when he called me, he said, "Look, I've decided to move." And I remember I was out at Waverley when he called, and George. I may have got a little bit of a hint from Brent Guerra because he told Gooey a bit earlier than he told the rest of us. But when I first found out, I was like, how they just got Tippett. How can they fit Tippett on about $1 million and then Bud at the same time? But look, that's footy. It's how it played out. And because of the selfless role and the team first that Bud had for us during that final series in 2013, you wouldn't have heard one Hawthorn player be filthy at Bud leaving. We could understand that it was a life-changing deal for him.
Yep.
And we were able to salute with his last game for Hawthorn and winning a premiership.
Hodgie, 2009, he re-signed for 4 years, and I'm told you had a big role to play in keeping him at the club at that point, only a few months after he kicked 100 goals for the season.
I don't think I did any more than what the other players would have done, as trying to make Bud feel comfortable. We knew that this was a bloke who, at 21 or 22 years of age, to kick 100 goals in his 4th season, he was going to be an absolute freak, and he's clearly lived up to that. But I guess when you got a young player, you try and protect him as much as you possibly can. He was a young person who just wanted to be a 21, 22-year-old, go out with his mates, have a few beers, just relax, and everyone wanted a piece of him because of who he was. He was the next big thing in AFL. So we tried our best to make sure that Bud felt comfortable. But there was a lot of stories for us that he couldn't go to cafes, so he used to go to the same cafe And they used to duck him, put him in round the corner just so he could sit back and have a coffee and breakfast in peace. So for a 22, 23-year-old to go through that, he had to mature very, very quickly. But ultimately, Jacinta was in Sydney. He knew, we all know that Sydney's not a massive AFL city compared to Melbourne. And he did it as a personal choice for both Jacinta and himself.
Where do you rank him, Gerard, in an all-time great?
Well, he's going to be a legend. I mean, there's no real sort of further elevation you can get than
But
that.
where do you rank him?
Well, as a legend, yeah.
But is he a better player than Gary Ablett Sr. or Gary Ablett Jr.?
Look, I don't like try to compare those things. I think you really, it's an impossible task to compare Gary Ablett Sr. to Junior to Buddy. I mean, Gary Ablett was the senior, was the most explosive, most dynamic player I've ever seen. He kicked 7 goals on a wing, from a wing in a State of Origin game when I was playing as out of the forward pocket. And I got a sore neck watching these balls. It was a day where he left his boots behind and EJ had to get him new boots. So 7 goals from the wing in about his 15th game, I think they picked him. It was quite an incredible performance. So, but Buddy, he's been around for 20 years, just about 19 years. It's. I remember talking about this at a dinner a couple of years ago. How sad I'll be when Buddy's not there because he just adds something to our game. It crosses the state boundaries. It crosses sports. He transcends sport. He's just a bloke that you want to watch.
And I think that proves what he did up in Sydney because we all know that Sydney's got to chase that big name. They went after Plugger. They went after Barry Hall. And now they went after Bud. And they need that big face of the football club to draw people to the ground. And we always thought that while Sydney aren't going so well, that the crowds probably won't be there. But he was the reason. He was the reason why people went back to the football. And you look back to his when he kicked his 1,000th goal, to watch a non-football state, a home and away game early in the season, and watch 10 or 15,000 people run onto the ground, and just the excitement that he brought to people in a non-football, non-AFL state was amazing. And you can understand why he's loved by supporters, both Hawthorn, Sydney, and other teams as well.
Yeah, that was the biggest moment I've seen in football. I was lucky enough to be there that night.
You were calling it, weren't you, Gerard?
Yep. And to watch those waves of people, it was outside of grand finals. It was the biggest moment in football I can ever remember. It was just so extraordinary.